Hey folks, I'm Sean C. Davis. And my kids come to me pretty regularly and ask me to print out a coloring page for them. And we usually go to the same website or we end up on Google Images and we're searching for something specific. And, my son might say something like, I want dragons. I mean, he'll be really specific. Like, I want dragons and a castle and I want knights. And then there's a spaceship flying over the castle. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to find that. Probably. And even if we did, we're going to have to look for a while. And so I think, there's some usefulness and utility, of course, in saying, hey, this is generic. I'm going to scrape through all this information to find what I'm looking for. But I decided to build this app called Crayonable as a way to help them be able to generate their own coloring pages. And so it's designed specifically for that. So I want to show you how this works. And then I want to show you behind the scenes how it kind of all comes together. And one of my favorite features of this, and it still needs a little bit of tweaking, but one of my favorite features of this is that we try to catch copyright infringements on the front. So rather than spending tokens and then getting rejected by a more expensive model, we're going to run a cheaper model that's going to look at the prompt, assess it for the likelihood that it will get flagged for copyright infringement, and then suggest something better or more descriptive that AI can work with. And it's been really fun to iterate on this because my daughter will sit at the computer, dictate, and then try to build on the existing prompt. And sometimes it just gets so detailed that the agent just gets confused. But if I said something like, show Moana surfing with Lilo, Stitch, and the tiger from Aladdin. I don't know. Clearly things we shouldn't be allowed to do, right? Okay, and then a moment later, it says the prompt referenced multiple trademark Disney characters and properties, which cannot be used to generate content. So it's going to say instead, a coloring page of a young woman surfing alongside a blue alien creature, a Hawaiian girl, and a striped tiger, all riding waves together in a tropical ocean setting. So I'm going to generate this, but then I'm going to come back because I think we can actually do something better. I'm not expecting a very good result here just based on my experience, but let's see what happens. Okay, so not bad, aside from the fact that this tiger is missing a paw, but also not at all what we were after, right? And so I think there's some things that I can do to the system to try to help coerce it from trademark material to something that a kid is actually going to recognize like that. Like, what are the loopholes here, for example? So if I went to go generate another one, what we're trying to do is sort of give some context clues, and we'll see if that works. But this is not it. This is definitely not it. So we'll keep working on that. In the meantime, I want to show you how it all works. Okay, so here's the user flow that we just went through and kind of logically how this works, and then we'll talk about what's going on under the hood below the user experience. So we do have an authentication gate. So you have to be signed in first, and then you can go to the generate page. And you need to also have credits. The way I built it is that every user has 3 credits by default when they sign up. And my intent is to add some payment processing, but also I don't think anybody else is ever going to use this thing. So as long as you have credits, you can click generate. And then you end up on the generate page for this particular image. And that's when your prompt analysis comes in. And if it's okay, then we go through and we generate the page. If it needs work, then we suggest that prompt And these arrows are a little bit goofy here, but we can try again, or we can pick a prompt. And then when we have an image, if it fails, obviously we show the error message. Otherwise, we generate it. It's ready to go. You can make your download. You can make it public. It's private by default, and you can move on to generate another one. And now I want to show you what's going on under the hood and how all of these Netlify primitives work together. So what happens is when this prompt gets submitted through the browser UI, we then hit /API/generate. This is a Netlify function. And the first thing that Netlify function does is it calls a helper function, which confirms that we have an authenticated user. And then if we have an authenticated user, we can then put a new record in the database for that particular page that's going to get generated before it even gets generated. That is going to enable us to go to a page and have this object persist in the database that we can still reference. So we insert this page into the database and just mark it with the status of pending. Then we move on. We hit the validate prompt, which is a background function. So this is running in the background so that we don't have to, we're not at risk of timing out, or at least we've reduced our risk as much as we can and are unlikely to time out. And we then hit the AI gateway, and we're going to use the Anthropic Haiku. This is the lower cost model, because all we have to do at this point is just validate that we're likely to avoid copyright issues as long as we have the right prompt. So we validate that prompt, and then based on the result of that, we save the status in the database, and then we move on. And if we pass, which it does, regardless, we give the user an option. They can do one thing or the other. They go and they generate the image. That is also a background function. And so that's getting processed in the background. We have a longer timeout period. And for that one, we're using Google Gemini. And we're going to generate that line art image. We've got the system prompt. And if that is successful, if it doesn't get rejected, if it does get rejected, we go back and we revalidate. If it doesn't get rejected, we then make use of Netlify blobs, and we store the file that Google generates for us as a Netlify blob. And then we hit the database and we set the status to completed, because now we have an actual image file, and we remove one of the credits because that credit is spent because the page was successfully generated. And then over here, we just kind of show that we display the coloring page. So anywhere where that generated coloring page is shown, what's happening is we're hitting /API/images/ the ID of that image. And what we do then is we're over here, we're hitting the image CDN. So we have a route that then passes through the image CDN, which enables us to do transformations on the image. And we use the source of that image. These arrows are a little bit messed up, but the source of that image is then the blob. And that's a little bit tricky. I need a better diagram to actually show you how those three pieces interact, because those together are this really powerful pattern where you can use a function to return a blob that is an image, but you don't always want to return that at the full size, even though you can take advantage of caching. So you can put the image CDN in front of that, and you can transform the image in pretty much any way that you want, and then take advantage of our image CDN cache just out of the box. And so we do that so that when we're going to load it in a small frame or whatever, we don't need to download the entire image to the browser. So that's how it all works under the hood. This is a very common pattern that I have found works really well when it comes to generating images, and you can stitch all of these Netlify platform primitives together. Now, as long as you're using our skills or you're using agent runners, you ought to be able to just say what you want, and all of these things will get pieced together by the agent under the hood. But if you want to kind of, play Puppet Master, move the things around a little bit and have a little bit more control, this gives you a picture of how it all works together. I'm Sean C. Davis. I hope this one was helpful. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time.